everybody. Welcome to the Particle Accelerator podcast, where we talk to future thinking business leaders about how to grow and accelerate business. I am here with Jeff. Jeff, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Jeff Borello. I am co-founder and CEO of Andromeda Technology Solutions. We are out of the Chicagoland area. We do essentially outsourced IT, managed service providers for various types of businesses, and we're really focusing on manufacturing.
Oh, awesome. I'm excited to speak with you. We're a Particle 41. My company is a software, really focused on software, mainly application modernization. So excited to speak to you and compare notes. But let's get into some lightning questions here. Tell me, Jeff, what was your first job?
Paperboy.
Oh, me too. That's great.
It's one of the things that, it's really sad that really they don't have, that's not a thing anymore, right? Nobody delivers. I mean, first of all, newspapers are dying, but I mean, even before that, they deliver them with trucks and in the middle of the night. But it was a great first business thing for me, right? You had to go deliver the papers. There was a timely aspect to it. And then, not a lot of people, but some people still paid direct. So you had to go collect money. It was a great first job.
Yeah. Same here. Did you live on your route, or was your route nearby?
No, it was nearby. I didn't actually live on the route. I inherited, a friend of mine had the route. I ended up with two. I had two different routes that kind of connected each other with kind of my house in the center. So it was, I did that for 7th, 8th, and all through high school. So it was 6 years.
Yeah. Similar, very, very similar story. I was fortunate enough to live on my route, and I don't know. I rode my skateboard, and I'm not sure if that really helped my tips, because at 6 o'clock every morning they'd hear the ta-dunk of my skateboard on the sidewalk, and collecting the money was no joke, right? Go get my $7. Yeah,
that's exactly right. And for me, it was Monday through Friday. I was the best paperboy there was. So I'm a night owl, so Saturday and Sundays were tough for me. I was always late on Saturdays and Sundays, and you'd always get that one guy out there on the porch, like waiting for you, and he would just be grumpy as all heck.
Yeah. You ruined his morning coffee because he didn't have his paper in time. Yeah,
no doubt.
That's awesome. Well, what toy or hobby did you have when you were younger as a child that inspired what you do career-wise today?
That's the nerd thing, right? So a family friend of ours, who since passed away, Clifford Tuvy, was a friend of my dad's, and he bought 6 Radio Shack TRS-81, the first model of Radio Shack computers that came out. Bought one for himself, my family, my cousin's family, and some of his relatives, and just showed up one day with this thing and said, "Here," unboxed it, and that was that's how I got into being a computer guy. I went to school as a programmer, but I taught myself to program, and that's eventually led to what I do now. But it's that was what started it all way back in 7th grade.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Commodore 64 over here.
There you go.
And then programming, like the Apple. We had Apple IIs at school. Yeah. And it was like fourth grade. Logo. Nobody. With the turtle and the drawing, and then the little you could even repeat the sequences and stuff. Really enjoyed that. I tried showing that to my kids. They lost interest pretty quick.
Well, they shouldn't even have. So my first computer I sold so I could get the color model that came out, right? And I gave that to my niece, and eventually they gave it back to me. So about a month ago, I went and dug it out of the crawl space, and it was all boxed and sealed up, connected it all up. I finally had to find the right connector to get it connected to a modern monitor, and fired it up. It still worked. I was showing my son. He was like, yeah, whatever. I'm going back to what I'm doing.
Yeah, you basically gave me a digital typewriter.
Go back to watching TikTok.
Yeah,
it was amazing. I mean, I remember some of the commands. Like it was kind of a blast from the past. It's still sitting there in my office. I just can't decide what I want to do with it.
Yeah, that's interesting. My now 18-year-old son. We did do like Arch Linux, set it up where you're literally installing something for your window management, and just really building the Linux operating system from the ground up. And cool. If you didn't say, "Hey, I want to install this," so he'll be going to college in the fall and for cybersecurity and computer science. And
Oh, nice.
I think that early days of like putting the whole operating system together was key for him to appreciate it. So that's really cool. What was your favorite and least favorite course in college?
College in general. So I was, I love working. I loved, and it took me a while to figure out what I didn't enjoy going to class, and I didn't enjoy even the programming classes. I didn't enjoy as much, just because I like to do something to get a result that's not a grade, right? So certainly my programming classes I enjoyed. Math. So I went to the University of Illinois for a while, and to get a CS degree there, it's more math than it is CS, and it was just that high level, nasty calc and differential equations, and it was way above anything I wanted to be doing. It just kicked my butt.
Yeah, Champaign-Urbana.
Yeah, yep.
That's where my wife is from. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, I did 3.5 years there, and then eventually I just finished up at the local college at home, and went from not doing so well at U of I to being on the dean's list at the local school. And I already had a job lined up with a local high tech company, so I just wanted to get out. It was my whole goal.
You're probably similar to me. You're learning C++, and then I went to Colorado School of Mines, so they even had like. Oh, yeah. Fortran and some really legacy stuff going on, or there was like Cold Fusion, PHP, ASP, like different really server-side scripting language. Even Java was there available to you with like JSP server pages. And
oh wow!
And in the .com bubble, like getting something online fast was hard.
Yeah.
But it was also much easier with the things they weren't teaching you about in college.
Yeah.
So to try to translate what they were teaching you to what was immediately adding value, there's a huge disconnect there.
No doubt. Yeah. It's like you get the fundamentals and you get some structure to it, but I learned so much more so I had, after freshman year in college, I had a summer job at the local place where I ended up working, right? So I worked there summers and Christmases, which was part of what probably didn't help my schooling, because I just loved the working part so much. And then you go back to school and like learn, but I learned so much. I learned more there in a summer than I did probably the entire college career, right? Working under people and they're teaching, and it was good stuff.
Yeah. Cool. Well, what quote from a famous person lives in your mind rent free?
Oh man, this actually isn't my favorite, but I hear it a lot. It's one of my co-founders' favorites. And I won't get it exactly right, but it's most people don't recognize hard work because it shows up in coveralls and gloves or something. I think it's like Thomas Edison or somebody. But it's I live that motto, whether I run around with it or not. I don't know, but it's definitely most people don't like to work hard, right? Working hard's tough.
Yeah, I hear that. Along those lines, one of my favorites is my time during the week is for the life I have. My time on the weekends is for the life I want. Something similar there. What was the greatest invention or discovery you feel in the last 300 years?
Oh, 300. Wow. It's funny. I don't know when they were invented, but one of the things I always talk about people that were alive before they had screens for Windows and after, and like, Windows, not computer Windows, real Windows. That people are like, that was so phenomenal. But I'll say the latest one for me is every time I drive somewhere, I just took a trip, college visits with my son, and we were traveling down around Midwest. The GPS and the like Google Maps is just a phenomenal thing to me. It's just
right.
As a matter of fact, I just traveled Monday to go see the eclipse. A guy from the office and I drove 11 and a half hours round trip to get down so we could see the full eclipse. And again, using the map we're doing, I had no clue we were going, just plugged it in and just kind of let it meander us around. And it's just a phenomenal thing to me that just how detailed they are and how exactly it reroutes you. And for me, it always amazes me still.
Yeah. I think that combined with like how intelligent cruise control is getting.
Yeah.
Where you don't even have to monitor the accelerator. You just set your ideal speed and it's navigating like the distance of things in front of you, plus keeping you in the lane a little bit. A road trip becomes a real pleasurable thing.
Yeah, for sure.
That's cool. All right. Well, we'll kind of get on with it, get into our area of expertise here. What tech trend significantly impacted you or your industry, and how did your company respond?
It's a great question. So for us being a managed service provider, before probably, I don't know, 15 years ago, there was no such thing. You just, IT companies, people called you, you fixed it. You did a lot of out in the field kind of stuff. And then this concept of managed services came along where it's a flat monthly fee. You kind of get all you can eat is how they describe it. But what we've noticed over the last couple of years is because, everyone always talks about everything getting easier to do and simpler, and we're seeing the exact opposite. Everything's more complicated. You got stuff in the cloud, you got stuff on your computer, and trying to integrate all that. So the big trend we've noticed is you can no longer provide this all-you-can-eat flat rate, because what used to be install a new computer for someone, it took 2 hours, and you could absorb that into that agreement. Well, now it's taken 4, 5, and in some cases 6 hours, because there's just so much more complexity and people got different apps they're running. So really for us is getting away from that. Like, we have to start charging people for some of these things that we used to include. And it's a tough transition for our clients, because our clients are like, wait, we don't want to do that. You used to do this all for the flat rate. So it's really just it's a little bit of an industry shift, I think, for the whole industry, and those that are getting on board with it, I think, are going to be more successful. And so you either got to raise your prices or you got to charge for some things that you used to include. And it's a tough pill to swallow. It's a tough road to navigate, but it's really what has to happen. And, we hire a lot of talented, smart people, and talented, smart people are expensive, and you got to be able to keep paying them. So the clients want the best people, but they get sometimes a little sensitive about paying for it. It's just really that balance of trying to provide really great service for a good value.
Yeah. We're highly focused on app modernization, and what we see is there's a curve that folks go through, right? The adoption curve.
Yeah.
Well, when we're talking about replacing legacy software, they're at the tail of that curve where there are fewer people in the market that understand those legacy technologies.
Yeah.
And so you feel like, man, the tech that I have is now very expensive to maintain, versus, but it's also like maintaining it. It's like maintaining the collectible car.
Yeah.
It's really expensive to fix because the parts are hard to find. And so, we just kind of see that discontentment at the tail end of the curve.
Yeah, and it's part of that hanging on to things too long, right? I mean, it's like anything.
Right.
hang on to your car too long, and all of a sudden, it's not quite what it was at one point. So yeah, I get that.
That's cool. What are 3 technology innovations, or just one, 3 technology innovations that you guys are betting on to drive your business growth?
Yeah, so obviously the cybersecurity is just a gargantuan thing, right? I mean, it's just every day someone's trying to get into somebody, whether it's us or our clients. So just that constant battle and that constant trying to stay in front of them has certainly been a big thing and is going to continue to be a big thing. And I think then trying to educate the world that everyone thinks they're not coming after me. I don't really need to pay attention to this, and I don't want that because it makes my life too complicated. And it's just, you can't live in that world anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah. Post-it notes on the side of your monitor don't work anymore.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, even my wife will say, "Why do I have to have all this 2-factor on my phone?" It's like, trust me, you just want it. It's right, because the alternative is really unfun. You think having a 2-factor in is unfun? Yeah, getting hacked is really not. We just one of my co-founders just talked about his next door neighbor has to sell her house because she got hacked, and they got into whatever they got into and got all her money, and she's got to sell her house to pay for it. It's like, that's just so brutal. I think the second big thing, obviously AI is on everybody's mind, and I think it is absolutely going to be a game changer. Maybe not quite yet. I think everyone's still trying to figure out what to do with it. But I know, in our field, being able to automate as much as you can, like a lot of those repetitive tasks, and there's just a lot of places where AI is going to be a big major impact.
Yeah, we're playing with that too. I'm actually happy not to talk about it to some degree, just because it is like that, and so I appreciate the priority you gave it just now.
Yeah,
where it's like, hey, yeah, let's adopt this and keep our eye on it and use it for what it's great for.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are a lot of problems that are being brought to us thinking that AI is a solve for it, and just not. Like,
yeah.
And then we've also seen projects fail because they apply AI to it thinking that it's going to solve it. What it really does is it introduces a very wide or broad a broad solution set for a narrow problem. And then we ended up narrowing it so much that the idea of even using an LLM or a generative AI solution was kind of misguided, because we ended up narrowing it and realizing like, hey, this could have worked with a logical taxonomy, just some regular good old data-driven categorization. And really it was more about problem detection, like detecting what to do, rather than actually being an AI solve. And so there's a lot of that trial and error going on.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess third one, probably, I was going to give you a cop-out answer and say it's not a tech thing, but it's, and especially with the AI component to it, is just human-to-human communication, right? We are still a company that communication is our top core value. It's everything we do is about communication internally with clients, with vendors, whoever it happens to be. I think it's becoming a lost art, and I think most people don't understand it. One of the things we've noticed is you'll say to somebody, call the client, and you'll come back the next day and say, did you call the client? Yeah, I sent him a message. No, that's not calling them, right? So I think this communication is a lost art that I think is really going to be a differentiator down the road for people. So not a technical thing. It's almost anti-technical, I guess.
No, I love that. I love that. That is so true. Like, at some point, just having the person-to-person communication is worth a lot of things. And then I think that's exacerbated by we're all sitting at home. Or at least many people are still working in isolated environments. So there's my team is not talking. It's exacerbated if the team is not talking person to person.
Yeah.
And so if you fall back on like message everything, then there's distortion, and we're not building relationships, and we should be. That's really good call out. Cool. So, where are the most significant gaps between your digital ambitions and the realities of today?
Oh, wow. I think it's that there are so many new things out there that are great, right? But trying to find the time to understand them, and then there's a certain amount of time and effort you got to put in to anything new, digital or otherwise, I guess. But so being we call it's a death by 1,000 subscriptions, right? Because everything's in the cloud and everything's a subscription now. But just being able to dedicate the right amount of time to understand the thousands of different digital options you have out there, and be able to find the right one and then get it implemented, and not try to do 100 of them a year. And it's overwhelming at times with the just various options you have and all the neat, toys and this and we could do that. And so I think that's a big piece. And I think the second big piece is data analysis, right? Being able to have the right kind of data in front of you to help you make decisions. That's a huge advantage if you can figure out how to do it right. But you need the right mentality, you need the right software, you need the right, and it's not easy. But I think those that can do it are gonna really see themselves ahead of others.
Yeah, that's cool. What are the biggest challenges you have to maintaining a competitive edge in your industry?
Man, Benjamin, you don't have any easy questions. These are all right.
I love it.
I'll go back to what we talked about, the communication. It's I think especially as more and more, and I hate to go back to the AI topic, but as more and more people implement AI and this automation, and they start moving away from humans, that being the people that know how to communicate and have the right people on the team, right? So one of the things we always say is, we don't necessarily hire the best technician that we can get. He has to be able to communicate, right? He has to be someone people want to talk to and like, right? So I think it's understanding that we're all humans, and humans have a need to be with other humans. So being able to maintain that personal relationship with people is going to be a really big differentiator for us as other people move more away from that.
For sure. I think we find that ownership, one of my buddies said, you hire for skill, you fire for culture.
That's good.
And so we find that the generalist, the generalist that takes ownership is the special ops guy. He's the Navy SEAL, right?
Yeah.
the guy who's really brainiac about one or two things, but can't communicate. That's great. He's super skilled at those great things, but then the cultural aspects end up being the challenge.
Yeah. You're really no good if nobody wants to work with you, right?
Right.
And there's certain jobs that are better for that. I mean, what job doesn't have to communicate? But there's, you picture the guy, the programmer in the back room who never has to talk to anybody because someone tells him what to code and he codes it. But man, communication is such a big thing, and being likable and personable, and so it's a big deal.
Yeah, for sure. Love that. Do you guys have a mechanism for testing that in your interview process or in your get to know?
It's just part of the interview process, right? I mean, we spend we have an entire interview that's around our culture, right? So we talk about our core values and what it means to them. And we do a pretty good job of, you get a pretty good idea when you sit down with someone of like, is this someone I really want to spend, every day with? It's like, yeah, no, not really. So we have,
that's a great, mnemonic, like, hey, do I want to spend 40 hours a week with this person?
Yeah,
yes or no. That's
I think the other thing I've heard is like, would you want to go out to dinner with this person and sit when you eat? If it's like, yeah, no, I don't want to spend any time with this person, so why do I want him to work here?
Yeah, I've always had the most diverse teams. Even picking a dinner location was challenge, but it was a challenge, but they could get some amazing work done and were really fun to be huddled around a whiteboard with.
Yeah.
Not so much a dinner table. How do you, I guess, I'll ask this one first, but how do you approach risk management when implementing cutting edge technology? That's a good question.
Yeah. Everything we do now, that's the first question. Like, what's the risk, right? We just talked literally last week. Somebody said, hey, so we use Microsoft Teams internally. And obviously record meetings. We didn't have the transcription turned on. So someone said, well, let's turn transcription on. And then the immediate question was, okay, what are the ramifications of that, if that now somehow got fed out to the cloud? So you can never talk about it enough. And yeah, do we get tired of talking about it sometimes? Yeah, we have. It's like, oh, really? Because we have some really good risk management people on our team, but some of you go, wow, is that really paranoid? Where'd you come up with that? But it has to be first and foremost on every single thing, every new technology, every new process. You just can't. Security is such a big deal that you can't talk about it enough or loud enough.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, many of the members of our audience are CEOs or business owners. And so that's a great reminder just to keep risk front of mind.
Yeah.
What advice can you share for connecting your tech roadmap or your IT roadmap to your overall business strategy?
That's a really good one. So, whoever's guiding your technology, you got to make sure they are sitting down with you at least once a year. Now, again, if it's internal people, they tend to do this. People that outsource their IT, a lot of places don't do this enough. So we have a dedicated position here where we sit down with our clients at least once a year. And many of them we do 2 or 4 times a year and really talk about, okay, tell us where the business is going. And we need to understand that as your trusted partner in the technology side so that we can make sure the technology is lined up with it. I think a lot of places don't do that, and the business part knows where the business is going. And then at some point they go, oh, hey, we need the technology to do this, and it's always lagging behind. So, and again, I think it happens more with places that have internal IT. They just tend to have a seat at the table. But you got to think about those where you're outsourcing it. You got to get your technology partner there at the table, and you got to let them in on it, and they got to be part of the conversation. Otherwise, they get caught flat-footed, or you get down the road too far with a business solution that can't be done or is going to create a risk problem, right? So you just really got to get your IT partners more in the conversation and make sure that they know where we're going and we're doing it together.
Yeah, we call it shifting left, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Shifting left in your process. Whatever you can do to start that communication sooner. My brother is a chief warrant officer in the Army, and so he's usually they're kind of the specialists, the advisors, the experts in the Army. Very similar to like a specialist in the Navy or an intelligence officer in a different branch.
Yeah.
but so he'll have the general come in and say, hey, I need to get 40 guys from here to here. And he realizes, like, on one tank of gas, like, that's going to be a problem. So you got to think about, you got to get the right people in the room to advise you on, what is that level of effort going to be, so that you're not just making decisions, in that vacuum. So that's great.
Yeah. There's like, it needs to be part of the budgeting. It needs to be part of the planning. And it's not, it used to be that you just sort of, the technology was an afterthought, or the IT people an afterthought, but they need to be part of the process. They need to be part of the planning. They need to be part of the budgeting. It really is. It's such an advantage these days that technology can be such a advantage mover for a company. You don't want it to be an afterthought, I don't think. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and thank you, brother, for service. I really appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate that. What lessons have you learned from tech initiatives that failed to deliver expected value?
We're a very big company that we like to learn from mistakes, right? We always tell people, listen, if you're not making some mistakes, you're not doing enough. So we learn from everything, right? Everything we do. And man, we've been doing this for almost 30 years. It's 30 years in October. So we've made some doozies. I don't have any one that probably jumps to mind. A lot of them revolve around putting out a new product or a new process. And again, it goes back to communication, either not communicating enough to the client or even not communicating enough to the internal team. You just take a lot for granted, right? You go, oh yeah, we know all what this is going to do, and you forget to tell somebody, and it just doesn't go as you hoped. And you go, and then, when you do a root cause or a deep dive on it, you go, it's very obvious after the fact. It's like, oh yeah, we forgot to tell them it was going to do this, or we forgot to tell them how to deal with that. So I think a lot of it just comes back to, you got to stop and think about all the other stakeholders and how it's going to impact them, and make sure you're getting them into the conversation, and so they understand, and just don't take things for granted. That's, I would say, probably 75% of our mistakes that we made have always come around some form of communication.
Yeah, that's great. How do you cultivate a culture of innovation and digital fluency? You've mentioned some of those things, but any other tips for, really cultivating that culture of innovation?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, you got to let people know that mistakes are okay, right? Hey, we're going to try some things. They're not all going to work. But that's really tough for people. Somewhere in the culture of school or wherever, we teach people, like, don't make mistakes. If you make one, certainly hide it. Don't tell anybody, right? And people just get really gun shy about doing things, right? So we talk often, and I don't know where this is not my concept. Actually, it might be. I think it's a Jeff Bezos, the one-way door versus a two-way door, right? Where I was like, if it's a one-way door that you can go through and you can't come back, okay, let's make sure we talk about it. Let's make sure we all are on the same page. But if it's something you can undo, take a shot at it, right? Get out there, give it a try. And then if it doesn't work, we undo it and we come back and start over.
Yeah.
I think with that is, now you're back to the risk conversation, right? But make sure you understand the risk parameters of what you're doing. Are you opening up some doorway into the security of the business that's going to be a problem? So again, I think as security gets to be a bigger deal, it's harder to innovate, right? Because it's just harder for people there's pieces of it they don't understand. They really need to, it's a much wider understanding you need to make sure you're not going to cause some issues. So I think it's just always encouraging people to get out there, try stuff, and if you're not sure, bring it up and talk about it.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time in the early days or mid to early days of Ruby on Rails. And that introduced me to a couple of guys that were over at Sabre Innovation Lab, which is associated with American Airlines. And they had a really cool concept of a 10-day trial versus a 100-day trial. And so they would do these tests that took 10 days of development work. And they would run this test. And the guideline was that we're going to do a bunch of these tests that take about 10 days to implement, and we're going to get data on those, and we'll allow for about 10 of those a year. And then we're going to have these 100-day tests, and we're only going to have 3 or 4 of those a year.
Okay.
And so they would do the 10, they would do a couple tests to decide if they wanted to do the larger innovation. And they would kind of structure it that way. So they, and I've seen similar things in other in other groups where they would just say like, hey, we're going to do, hey, let's spike this. Let's put a 3-point story in or a couple point story in just to spike it. And even if we end up throwing away the code, at least we tried something that informed how we wanted to actually architect it. And I found those have been kind of leading to that culture of like trying something, allowing for failure, but also time boxing and limiting the exposure.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It's like just it's almost breaking it into smaller chunks, but right. But in a 10-day test, you can only go so wrong, right? It's not a big failure; it's a little failure. So I like that a lot. Of like, it's almost like phases of something. But hey, we'll do a phase 1 test. If it's succeeded, we'll decide if we move to the next one. So I love that. That's phenomenal.
Awesome. So how do you stay informed about emerging technologies? Where do you get your info from?
I hire some really good people.
Water cooler talk.
I used to be that, when we co-founded the company, it was, we did everything, right? You were the tech guy, you're the business guy. And I was always the guy doing research and learning the new technologies. And I've really moved away from that a lot. I spend a lot more time on the business side now, but I'm still a tech geek at heart. So I'm always got my eyes open for things. I love, I was a software engineer, right? So I used to write software. So I understand software. I love just grabbing some SaaS trial, giving it a try, so it's always keeping your eyes open, reading. Right? I'm a big reader, watching LinkedIn. It's just, you got to just keep your eyes open and just take it in from all over the place. And just, you got to keep your hand, your finger on the pulse of what's going on out there, because it's changing so rapidly.
Yeah, I think as a CEO, the goal is not necessarily to delegate everything. It's to have the freedom to choose what you want to delegate. I recently I can't stand WordPress, just personal bias, I guess. And so we just redid our brand website for Particle 41. And so I did it with a static site generator called Hugo, which is based on Golang. It's just I wanted to modify our marketing pages with a coding practice. I didn't want to go navigate, 14 plugins in WordPress.
Yeah.
And to be able to have the freedom to do that and to, take the design files and the different assets that were put together by teammates and to kind of be a part of the assembly process into the static CMS or the code-based CMS was I got a lot of enjoyment out of that.
Yeah, it's kind of going back to your roots, right? It's like it's finding places where you can plug in and do that kind of stuff is kind of cool.
For sure. I mean, I feel very satisfied by being in VS Code and a terminal.
Yeah,
that's a happy place.
Yeah. So I will admit I did not look at the Particle 41 website. Now I did check out some of the podcasts though. But what Particle 41? What I assume that's going to be something about a 41st particle. But where'd that name come from?
Oh, I appreciate you asking. So niobium is the 41st element. It's often combined with steel. So most steel that you experience is an alloy with a little bit of niobium in there, and it makes it stronger and more flexible. So in most industrial applications, you're not just dealing with steel. Steel's actually a fairly brittle metal, but niobium makes it, and also will allow it to be anodized. So, if you see like in major, water treatment plants or place where a lot of pipe is involved, it'll be blue, and the blue is coming from the niobium.
Oh, very cool. That's awesome. I love that name.
Yeah, thanks. Cool. So last question here, or second to last question. Share an experience that you would with just people who are starting their digital transformation journey, or some advice you might give people starting out. And that could be starting out career-wise, but it could also be starting out just trying to be more digital, keeping in mind that mostly CEOs listen to our podcast.
Yeah. It's so one of our other core values is grit. But that reason, you gotta have the wherewithal to stay with it, right? Because none of it's easy, right? So if you think you're just going to take a half hour and it's not, I'll just do this in a half hour and it's going to go great. Nothing's easy anymore. So you got to be willing to put in the time, put in the effort, and you got to stick with it, right? Because one of the things we say here, especially is in the IT space, when we're fixing things, like a lot of times you don't fix it on the first time. A lot of times you don't fix it on the second time. Sometimes you got to come back a third time. So you really got it. Again, whether you're the CEO of a company or you're just coming out of college and you're starting your career, that stick to itedness, you got to be able to hunker down for the long haul sometimes. And especially I think now, people are so, it's this instant gratification, right? TikToks are short. Amazon shows up at my door in 2 hours, and just this instant gratification. It's a lot of things don't get done that way. So you really got to be able to hunker yourself down and be prepared to stick it out for 2-3 weeks sometimes to make sure you're going to get what you need to get. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Cool. Well, this has been great. If people like what you've had to share today, how would you like them to connect with you?
LinkedIn is great. So Jeff Borello, Borello. My LinkedIn is there, but our website is great. This is when you're young and you don't know, like Andromeda, right? It's the least it's on the screen there, but nobody can spell Andromeda. But it's Andromeda-tech-solutions.com is our website.
Love the name. Yeah, it's cool. Awesome. Well, it's been great meeting with you, and thanks for getting to know us and being on the podcast today.
Yeah, Benjamin, I appreciate the invite. It was great talking to you. That was awesome.
All right, cool. So, I'll, we edit this stuff. It usually takes a couple weeks to get it out. We usually have a couple of shorts and a long. Yep. Or the full episode. And so we'll give you those to cross promote or whatever. I will say we are partnered with some MSPs. And I'll even name drop just because it'll give me some validity here with what I'm about to say. So Rapid Scale used to be LogicWorks. Now it's Rapid Scale. They're a top tier MSP owned by Cox Digital Media.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Cox Technologies or whatever, the big behemoth of them. And what we're doing with them is we are partnering with them whenever they come across a client that has legacy software.
Yep.
And then we're especially good at putting a program together, building a team and putting a program together to take that legacy tech and get it cloud ready. So we have an established program for this. We are also helping them with AWS Maps funding. Okay. And so in many cases, you may encounter a business, you may even already have clients that are like, hey, our stuff's old. We're having trouble getting it in the cloud. The best we could do is lift and shift, which wouldn't really save them any money. Yeah. We are finding that we can go to AWS and Azure and get them to fund a lot of that movement.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool.
So usually it's, I think the max is about $400K. So what's generally happening is we're able to say, okay, well, this is going to cost, $850,000 or whatever. AWS is going to pay half. And so they're getting kind of a 50-50 deal. Okay. And we've been especially successful in that. We've done ServPro. ServPro is the franchise for fire and water.
Yeah, sure.
We've done ServPro. We've done a marketing firm called Agio. We've done Applebee's. We've done Rent-A-Center. We are kind of racking these things up.
Sounds like it.
Lucid Hearing, a bunch of brands. And so, Rapid Scale's made a bunch of money off of us because we not only, we're using mostly offshore guys. My business partner, who I've known for 20 years, is an Indian national. Oh, nice. So we're able to keep, and then we use some South American guys. One of my DevOps architects is out of Brazil. But all of our project management is in the US. Okay. So we can keep a really good client delivery relationship and do that communication that you brought up. So would love to help you if that's something that you like. Really, our mission is to replace the world's legacy software with cloud native solutions. Yeah.
we don't come across many of those, but as we delve more into the manufacturing world, I think we're going to see a lot of that. There's just you run into some homegrown stuff, and so I will absolutely keep you guys in mind for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you can make a lot of money and not have to do a ton of work.
Well, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no, that's really how we have it set up. I think I'm cutting a $50,000 check every month to Rapid Scale.
Wow.
I mean, they're doing pretty well for, and then I think they're even adding a little margin onto what they're doing. So they're probably, we have a subcontracting or a referral agreement already ready to go. I mean, this is what I want to do, is partner with MSPs to replace the world's legacy software. So.
Yeah, that's perfect, because we stay out of the software space completely. So I will absolutely keep you guys in mind if we can.
Anything like that. We've also done a huge laundry list of about 20 different mobile apps and just normal cloud platforms. So anything custom we can also handle. Okay. But I'm kind of refining that focus on those enterprise solutions. But we have an in-house designer for mobile that does a banging job. We launched Forte, which is Forte is like the Uber for music lessons, right? So you have your music teacher and the music, and then they're seeing you're seeing them, and you're playing the instrument. We've optimized the app for audio quality.
I appreciate it. My son is a junior in high school, and he's going to go to college to be a trombone performer. So and
they're connected with Juilliard and Royal College of Music, and they're getting teachers, like top tier teachers, to come in and do these lessons.
Yeah, because it's like you spend a lot of time traveling around. I mean, he travels. Well, luckily now the one private instructor he had is now, it comes to his high school, so he doesn't have to drive. He was driving 45 minutes one way to see this guy once a week. It was just a lot of time. So that's a cool thing.
Yeah, and I could go on. I mean, we've been doing this we've been really focused on the custom software for a long time. So
very cool. I'll let my salespeople know, and as we come across, and like I said, it doesn't come up very often, but sometimes it's because we don't have a good solution for it, and we just don't get involved in the conversation. But we love partnering with people, so I will absolutely make sure we keep our eyes open.
I find when you're an MSP, you really only get a lot of money when the stuff's in production and generating like stuff to support. Yeah. Especially on the cloud. Most cloud MSPs are doing 25% of spend based off of the Amazon resources.
Yep.
And so what we're finding is that we're able to get that workload going faster. And so we're unlocking that revenue.
I
and
see.
A lot of MSPs say, well, I'm not really there to do your application and get you ready for the cloud. Well, then by the time they're done with all that build, then they'll go back out to market.
Yeah.
And so when we partner with MSP, we're also keeping the MSP informed as to what it is that needs to be supported and kept secure.
Okay.
So that relationship is maintained. And so it's unlocking revenue for the MSPs and getting that, so it doesn't just it's not dead weight in the pipeline.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. It's very cool.
All right, sweet. Well, I appreciate you listening to my pitch, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Ben. Very enjoyed it.
All right, cool. Thanks.
All right, bye.
All right, bye.